guy was super creepy.
Shen is considered the hardest boss in the raid, even though it's not the last, with the heroic only boss right after. And it consists of managing the boss's spatial position relative to 4 different conduits in the space, dealing with conduits overloading, moving from quadrant to quadrant, and slowly losing space in the map until we are doing lots of mechanics and a lessened space. The difference between normal and heroic, other than specific ability adjustments, is that on normal, when you destroy a specific conduit at the end of a phase, that conduit is removed from the rest of the fight. So you typically, strategically, target the hardest conduits first so they don't remain to the end of the fight. But on heroic, a destroyed conduit becomes active for the rest of the fight. And so in heroic, we actually target the easiest conduits first because therefore we guarantee the easier ones carry the whole fight. So what are the conduits? There are 4 of them, and they're used by the boss. Each one has different powers, and every time they level up their energy cap to 100%, they get a little bit more powerful. The conduit with the highest current energy at the transition, that is the number on the bar, not the number of levels it's leveled up, that one will be destroyed and the zone in that quadrant will be denied. The north one is called Static Shock. It does a debuff on a random raider and 8 seconds later will split the damage amongst all the players within 8 yards. The more players per level up. Raiders must stack on the target to split the damage, and you need about 4 to 5 people and 25 man. The east is called Diffusion Change. It's a random raider will get a chain lightning effect, and that will jump to players in 10 yards around from them, more damage per jump. For each jump that occurs, an ad will spawn, which does mild damage that is chain lightninged until it's dead, and the power of the ad scales up per level of the conduit, and on heroic, that ad fixates on their spawn target. The south conduit does Overcharge, which a random raider will be rooted for 6 seconds, and after the stun, will have an expanding electrical zone from their location to all players hit, also stunning for 3 seconds. There's a safe zone immediately around the target, so the goal of the raiders is to immediately stack within that person so they don't get stunned. The west conduit is Bouncing Bolt. Random locations on the ground will have bolts of lightning, and when it lands, moderate nature damage split amongst players within 6 yards, and an ad spawns if no player is hit. Then the bolt goes again. So to deal with this, you have to soak the bolt positions, kill the ads that spawns, but ideally no ads, and a single person is enough to soak this. The split is simply just a damage bonus, but not necessary. It's better to single soak it and get no ad than not soak it at all. So now that we understand the conduits, what's the actual boss fight? Well, from 100% to 65%, he's going to do phase 1. He'll always take the closest conduit ability to his position. He does an ability called Decapitate, so it's a tank swap. The current target when casting, a few seconds later, will get a big hit, reduced by how far they are from the current boss. So basically, the current tank gets the debuffs and is immediately taunt swapped while the first tank books it as far as possible. This reduces the damage they'll take, ideally 20 to 30 yards away. The boss will also do Thunderstruck. A random location in the map will have raid-wide damage, and if you're near it, it'll be one shot. So the farther away from the Thunderstruck you are, the better. He'll do an ability called Crashing Thunder, which void zones will appear at locations of random raiders, and they last 45 seconds. So if one's going to spawn under you, move out of it. We'll discuss the specific orders of conduit usages at a later time, but just to keep it simple, the way that we're going to handle conduits is whatever one we want to be destroyed, we will go to first and get it to like 90% to 95% power and then move the boss out. This will make sure that unless something very crazy happens, the one with the highest current power will be the one that we did first. The rest we will quickly cycle through, like one at a time, the next one, back to the original second one, back to the third one. Between phase 1 and phase 2, when he hits 65% life remaining, he's going to do a transition. On normal, he cannot be damaged and he moves to the center, and you need to do all 4 conduits at the same time for this 45 seconds. The strategy will be, in the spreadsheet, we're going to split the raid into 4 groups of 6 to 7 raiders per group. One will get each quadrant of the room, and you'll handle the abilities that spawn in your quadrant of the room. On Heroic, he'll do an additional Helm of Command, which pushes random raiders away from him in the middle and towards the edge of the platform. Running towards the boss counters a lot of this pushback, but it can make things very difficult if you're about to fall off the platform or trying to do a mechanic like trying to soak a bouncing ball or something. Once you're past this 45 seconds, phase 2 starts, and it goes from 65% life to 30% life. He's going to do new boss abilities, plus in normal, he's not going to do the conduit that we have destroyed, but on Heroic, he will do the conduit that we destroyed. In addition, he does Fusion Slash. The current target does a knockback, high damage, and debuffs with the stack to take 100% increased damage for the next 1 minute. This is a tank swap. He does Summon Ball Lightning, where a number of adds called Ball Lightnings will spawn at random raider locations. It'll do 6-yard radius damage at that location, and then a random raider will get damage ticks from it until it's killed, noting that in Heroic, also that random raider does a 3-yard radius burst around them as well, so we must be spread. The last new ability in this phase 2 part is Lightning Whip. It does damage on an area of the floor. There'll be an animation that will generate these like lightning whip beams, and then for 10 seconds they'll do continued damage on those locations of the beams. But as raiders, you can jump over the beams if you're careful. So the strategy for phase 2 is the conduits, of course, will continue to level up. You target the one first that we want to kill for sure, so that it's capped out at 90 to 95% energy, and then we cycle through the other ones until the boss reaches 30%. The raid will spread, and just don't take damage from the whips or various mechanics along the way. Of course, there's a second transition between phase 2 and 3. It's the same, but now with only 3 conduit abilities. If the bouncing ball hits an inactive quad, that is a quadrant that has been conduit destroyed, and therefore you can't use that space anymore. Simply let the ball hit the ground and deal with the adds. Don't go into a disabled area, or else you will die. If your quadrant is the one that's been destroyed, you just help the other quadrants, or maybe follow the spreadsheet if we go as far as to describe your secondary position. Now that we have arrived to phase 3, we no longer have to move around just to soak conduits, and only half the map will be available. The boss will do Overwhelming Power, which is a tank swap at 10 stacks, Violent Gale Winds, which pushes back the raid in random directions, plus damage. It stacks a debuff, increasing the damage taking in future waves of winds. So the baseline strat here, in normal at least, is you tank swap at 10, don't get knocked off the side. It's a soft enrage. Avoid the Thunderstruck mechanic, which is still back in phase 3, the Summon Ball Lightning, and the Lightning Whip, which all return in phase 3, and make sure the Lightning Ball adds are killed as quickly as possible. Some advanced notes of strategy on Heroic are that we're going to do West first, because we're going to lock that one as the easiest one so that it's always active. Make sure that we optimize moves from conduit to conduit to minimize discharge stacking, which is a buff that happens on the boss when he's not at a conduit. BM Monks will be able to provoke to increase his move speed, but in transitions, we're going to default to the inside during transitions within your quad while still covering your assigned quad, so that if he does the pushback on you, you have time to react. In phase 2, we're going to overload the north because that's the next easiest. Ball Lightnings will do AoE damage on their targets, so we need to grip them together and AoE them down as soon as possible before they do another jump. Our DPS must place themselves within 20 yards of the boss in an arc to make sure their adds spawn near him, so that we can have a very convenient grip all to the center. And in phase 3, the tanks are going to put the boss on one side edge and have all the non-melee tank and Mistweavers on the rim of the opposite side to maximize the Thunderstruck damage reduction. And all the range should collapse back into the boss to minimize the explosion hit, because the Thunderstruck will be placed where the ranged are, and then they'll run back to the melee. And of course, we're going to have speed boosts whenever Gale Winds happens, because we want to get those guys as quickly away from the explosion as possible.